Hi, I'm Jim and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop. And we're working on a project that a viewer contacted me and asked me if I could build him or if it could possibly be built. There's not too many things you cannot build if you have the tools to do it. And what we're building today are kingpins for his snapper. So let me move this camera. You're gonna have to keep watching to find out why I'm making kingpins, because this is really going to be interesting. Hopefully they will come out right. Now, here's a standard kingpin. What I'm gonna do right now is weld this arm onto the kingpin. It does not have a name because you can't buy it separately. You have to make this stuff. I've got the kingpins made. You'll notice if you've done any work at all on your machines, these kingpins have this little pinch on them. They crush them in a machine probably at the same time they're bending these. And what that does is this back plate slides on here and catches on them little pinch marks so it doesn't turn. You don't want this turning. And then the bearing on the back side of the tire presses up against the washers in here, and that piece of felt keeps the dirt out. You want to keep that felt soft. Keep it grease pressed into it or oil, something that's going to keep it pliable. When it dries out and gets hard, it's not going to keep the sand out of your bearings. So I can't pinch this to get it straight across. They have machines and dies that do all this. I cannot get the snap ring groove where it belongs and this pinch mark and this hole and then bend this bar. It's never going to bend where I want it to because I don't have the dies to do it with. So how I did it, I got a couple around here somewheres. I'm going to make them with a corner. I 45'd them on a mill, put them together, and welded the corners. No, I didn't weld them. Them had to be TIG welded. Right now I have my machine set up for MIG welding, that's wire. I did recently buy a TIG attachment, but I got to do some practicing before I can make my welds look like my son-in-law's. He is a professional welder. He owns his own sheet metal company, and the man's a wizard with a welding torch in his hand. I'm going to weld on these arms that come down off of the kingpins. Now when this is all set up, you have to put your tie rods in, and you have to set your steering wheel so it's straight. Right now it's turning. The kingpins are clamped in the same plane or parallel with this level, and all I have to do is set this steering wheel straight. Make sure these haven't slid down. You want this tight, because when this thing is standing on its tires, something in my eye, and this is up through the frame, all the weight of the machine is pressing down on this washer that's on top of this plate. So you want to have them pushed up against the bushing tightly, and you want to have this square. I mean, you don't want to be driving across your yard with your steering wheel on a 45. So let me hook up the ground, we'll turn on the welder, and we'll get these tacked in position. Then they got to come off and be welded over here. We'll turn that thing on. I want to be careful not to move anything. And make sure them are pushed up all the way. Better get a glove on. That should hold that one. Now we'll weld this one. Now we'll take it all apart and weld it permanently. Looks a little strange, don't it? Well, stick with me and I'll show you what we're doing. This is a standard kingpin. And this is the new ones we're building. Now, let me put you on pause. We'll take this apart and weld it permanently over here on this bench. Okay, I got them off the machine and I got them in here ready to weld. This is what one looks like. The pinch marks I was talking about on the original one I can't do, so what I did is I drilled and placed a roll pin through there for that to hook onto, and that stops the tire from going back too far. And of course this hole is for the cotter key you put through to hold it on to keep it from coming off the front. Now I got them, this one I got clamped down to the squares that we built last week. I've got these all, I got the corners filed down to get the sharp edge off from the grinding process. And I've had a few comments on, what are the squares for? Well, they're for holding stuff square when you weld it. If you don't have it clamped solid and you start putting heat in the steel, it's going to move and there's no way to stop it. So you clamp it into something solid and hope that helps. So let's finish welding these things up and get them back on the machine. Well, that one's certainly not going anywhere. Put that somewhere and let it cool. And we'll clamp this one on here. sometimes be a handful trying to clamp this stuff by yourself. I guess my clamp's going to be in my way here for this next weld. Or if I can put it down on the bottom somehow. Give that a try. Bumped my trigger. Kind of an awkward place to get to. Well, we'll clean these up a little bit on the wire wheel and get the burn off them, but that don't look like it's going anywhere. Now, we'll get this entire project put together and show you what it looks like. So don't disappear. Okay, now we're ready to put all these pieces on this machine that I have. This is one that I bought to clean up, fix, and sell. This is a 28-inch high back that has the lip on the inside of the deck. That's how you can tell if they're a high back or not. I wouldn't buy anything if it wasn't a high back. The tires back tires I've never had off of this, so I had to go get an impact. Because if you look at them real close, see the blue? That's Loctite. And they're on there. Now, the old bolts we won't use right yet. We got new bolts. These are half 20 thread. They're fine thread. They drag you up here. And they are 1.25 inches long instead of 3/4. And the reason why, we're also going to have lock washers on them. But for this demonstration, I'm not going to put them on because I'm not going to leave these bolts in this machine. All this stuff is going to get shipped out to Victor. Now we have to put these bolts through the backside of these flange plates so they're sticking out like studs like you'd have on a car. And I'm thinking you're not going to want to sit there and watch me screw these bolts in, so I'll be right back. Okay, got the bolts in and tightened up. Now this next step, I know you guys are going to all say, I know what you're doing. Well, Chances are you're going to. Now these are a little easier to put on because now you have studs sticking out like a car. Wouldn't you think they would do that anyway? I do have a video showing putting bolts through from the backside. 1 inch long is what you need, and just buying half 20 nuts makes life so much easier. Now we're going to put our nuts on. I see lights coming on now. Yep. See a lot of guys saying, yeah, I know what he's doing. Now, to make all these parts, I used a mill, a lathe, and a welder, and that's all I used. The lathe I use for facing these to length and drilling and tap the holes in both ends. The milling machine I used to put these flats on for a wrench. Now we're going to screw all 3 of these on here. Now the bolts that I put through the backside of the wheel flange are grade 8 because there's going to be a little more stress on those than on the standard bolts. These are 7/8 diameter solid steel rods. I thought about going to 1 inch, but I didn't have any stock laying around, so I used 7/8. Now, wrong tire. This is a tire off of my machine, and yes, the tread does not match. But I'm sure Victor's going to have to come up with some tires on his own. Now, there's 2 different style hubcaps. You got the new style, you got the old style. The new style is made to slide over the wheel flange, and with the fins in here, they straddle the bolt that goes through. That's the new style. The old style slides through the tire from the back side and is pinched between the wheel flange and the backside of the rim. I'm not really nuts about putting this on because I don't think the bolts are gonna grab this and hold it in place like it should be held, but we'll try it out. Now this is back to the old way of trying to get the bolts in, and the hubcap fell out. Oh, now I see lights popping on all over the place. I know what he's doing, but do you really? For some reason this does not want to line up. Oh, I see. The hubcap was sticking over in my way. Still does not want to line up for some reason. Well, let me get that in there and get the other side on, and I'll be back. Okay, now I see a lot of headlights popping on. I know exactly what they're doing now. The only thing I can think of is this original tires. For some reason, the rims are not perfectly flat or parallel on both sides, and it tipped out the bolts, one of them anyway. It did it on both sides, just enough where I couldn't get the screw started. So what I did is I reached in with a 5/8 wrench. Are you listening, Victor? And got a hold of the flat on the rod and broke it loose, maybe a half a turn. Then the bolt went right in. I tightened up the other two, and before I tightened this one all the way up, I retightened this rod on the first tire and then locked down the other ones. Should be perfectly fine. The ends of them rods, I've got a spare one here. Our machine completely flat and parallel on both ends, so it shouldn't be a problem. Now on to the front. Let's see what that looks like. I'm hoping I can tip this thing down and get it on the floor, but with all this extra weight, that may be a bigger challenge than actually building this stuff. So let me lift the camera back up and we'll start on the front. Now, I had a couple people that asked me about putting dualies on the back of this machine. You might get a better view of it there. And that was not a problem at all. All you had to do was put bolts through the back and make these adapters. The front, however, took a little bit more thinking on how I could machine one of these and bend it in the exact place it was supposed to be bent. I don't know if you ever tried to bend steel bars. They don't always bend as pretty as these. I have to use heat because I don't have a die. These are all cold stamped, I would think. And they have a die that does it. They drop the bars in and it touches on the ends of the bars for alignment, and then the machine comes down and stamps it. And probably, I'm not sure if they have a separate machine that stamps these or if it's all done at once. I've got an inside guy. I'll ask and see what he thinks. Now, to put these on, these are not sandblasted and painted yet. After welding these, I have to re-blast them and clean them up. The extension bars, I have not blasted these at all yet. So when I go to work Monday, I'll blast all this stuff, and I don't know if I'll paint it or not. I probably will end up painting it. That'll just delay me from shipping them to you, Victor, until the paint dries. Because you all know, if you've used Rust-Oleum paint, it takes a long time to dry. Now, don't forget to put on these washers. These are, what would you call them? They're like a bearing surface that rubs on the face of your, I guess I better get you over here. These washers rub on the face of the bushings and the face of this steel flange. Now, for some reason, this machine, and I don't know why, had 3 washers on the top side underneath of the snap ring. Most machines only have 1. Some machines I found have 2. This one has 3. So I made this to accept 3 washers. I'm trying to find my snap ring pliers. Oh, here they are. So I suppose that way if you put some new bushings in here and they're a little thicker than the old style, you can remove 1 washer and you'll still get your snap ring on. So let's put these on. And we'll try to get the snap ring on without it flying across the room. Let's see if we can turn this thing. It's getting heavier and heavier. Now we got 3 more washers on the top of this one. And the snap ring. Now, I found the easiest way to get the tie rods into this plate. Sometimes you almost have to bend it. If you turn it to the outermost place where you're, like if you were steering, the tie rod goes right in with no problems. I'm not going to bend that cotter key because I have to take this all apart to ship it. Put on your washer and your cotter key. Both hooked up. Now you want to put on these plates. I'm not sure what they're called. A dust cap. Go figure. Want to make sure I get these names right because I usually hear about it when I don't. We'll put the dust caps on. Now inside this dust cap, spit that out right, is your felt and 2 steel washers inside of the felt. That's what the back side of the tire is going to push against, not the felt piece. If the washers aren't in there, the felt will just get destroyed. So, put the first tire on, and these are old tires that I had out in storage, and my bearing fell out because it's probably a junk bearing. Then I have somewhere around here, this is not going to stay up there, I have a spacer. Somewhere in this mess, I guess I'm gonna have to look for it. I'll be right back. Boxes of junk laying around, I guess. Okay, these spacers are exactly 500 thousandths long, and to make it easy to make them, I just use a piece of a 3/4 inch galvanized pipe, cut it off and face the end. Simple to make. And I lost parts off the other side. Don't you love it when things go right? Now we'll put this tire on. And something is not lining up here. Tires are a little tight because they're inflated. You gotta push this thing down so we can get that key in there. There's that side. And I lost all my parts. Where to lay the spacer? I made these so they fit tight, so I would try to keep the dirt out from between the tires. So you have to put them on with this outside tire deflated. And then you can get the cotter key in the hole, hopefully, when you compress this tire. It's kind of hard to do with one hand. This one just does not want to cooperate at all. I don't know, it's starting to look like a monster. Now, we'll see if we can get this thing tipped down on the floor and see what it looks like when it's sitting on all 4 tires. Or wait, it's all 8 tires. I think I might shut the camera off for that because I think this is going to be a handful. I'll be back in a minute. Okay. I got it down on the floor, but hey, downhill is always easier. To stand it back up, I think I'm going to take some tires off this thing because that added a few pounds. But let's see if we can get a view of it. I don't know. Maybe I'll try to just take the camera out of this stand and walk around this thing by hand. That could be interesting because I'm using a front-facing camera and I won't be able to see what I'm showing you. So let's see what happens. Okay, it's probably going to be a little shaky. Bear with me. You can see the front and the back. And again, it's like the wife says, why would you do something like that? And basically, well, because I can, and because Victor, you asked for it. So, I think I'm going to take some tires off this thing before I try to stand it up and pack all this stuff up. And Victor, I'm not sure if you sent me your name, address, and zip code yet, but get it to me so I can, when I get this stuff painted, I can ship it to you. Let's see. I guess that's about it. So until next time, work safe, have fun, subscribe. I need subscribers, guys, if I'm going to keep this channel going. If Google does what they say they're going to do, I may be gone. So get some friends and neighbors to subscribe. Heck, I don't know. The only thing that bothers me about this setup is the back tires. When you're driving, now he asked for this because his yard is very wet. But if you're driving around and you have a bagger on here full of leaves and grass and dirt like my yard is, and you drive up over the edge of your driveway or sidewalk, and all the pressure is on this outside tire instead of the inside one, you've got a lot of leverage out here now. I'm just hoping we don't bend an axle. But the only way we're going to find out is to try it. That is a 3/4 inch steel bar, so it should hold up. It would help a little if you could find a set of tires that are a little smaller in diameter than the original ones. This one is. Maybe you could let a little air out of this one and reduce the diameter that way and keep this one inflated up all the way. But it's something you're just going to have to play with because nobody's ever done this before. So stay tuned. You never know what else we're gonna make because you viewers asked for it. Victor, I'll be getting a hold of you, and the rest of you guys, work safe, have fun, and keep on snapping. We'll talk to you soon. So long. Okay, I'm back. I got this all done, and I happen to think, okay, wait a minute. I know all you guys are going to want to know, how well does it turn? Well, I'm sitting on concrete, which the tires have a lot of grip. Outside, they're not going to have. But if you watch, it steers very easily. And if you watch the tire tread on both tires, you'll see why. This tire is barely rotating. This one's turning a lot. Even though the two tires are touching, they're still setting on independent bearings. So each tire can turn independently. And it steers very nice. Just thought I'd answer your questions before you asked them.